So originally Gasoline started off as a completely different track. It was very electro, lots of detuned saw waves, pitch bends, lots of screechiness, and I guess it's got the same kind of epic feel as it did back then, but it certainly wasn't as pretty as it is now. In fact, it even had a different vocalist. I was working with Enhanced Music's publishing department, and I sent it off to them right before I went off on vacation to Greece for about 3 weeks with my wife. And we were in Mykonos when I got an email back with a new vocal from Matt, which is what you hear right now. I was just completely blown away by it. I mean, it was fantastic.
Gasoline actually came together in a very unique way. Originally, Noah Neiman sent me this absolute banger of a track. It was really unique because normally I'm doing really melodic and softer tone kinds of things, and this one I got a chance to just open up.
But then I felt like the song wasn't sort of melodic enough to match the vocals. It was a little too bass driven, a little too, almost dubsteppy. So I ended up reworking it, retooled it, changed quite a few things. After that, it just sort of started to take a life of its own. And that's typically what happens with my tracks. I'll start writing and I'll come across something that just sounds really amazing and inspiring, and it starts leading me down a path that I'd have never thought to travel originally. And that's sort of how the instrumental was written. I typically write in Ableton Live. I find that it just sort of lends itself to experimentation and improvisation. You can get really good ideas into it really, really quickly. And with today's technology, I mean, it's just, you can get really good results with just a few pieces of software, staying completely within the box in the digital realm. So I want to take a quick look at a few of these bits of tech here and show y'all just how the sounds came together and what each bit does for the overall character of the song. So here we are in Ableton Live. This is the project file for Gasoline. Now, mind you, this is an older version of the track, so it might not sound quite as good as the final version does because it's missing some of the final touches I added at the end. The reason why we're actually looking at an older version, though, is because in some of the newer versions, I've done a few things to where some of the instruments have been rendered down to pure audio, and so I can't actually show them to you, and that's kind of what I want to get into today. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to focus on the drop because that's obviously the most exciting part, specifically the lead synths right now. So it's going to be some of these right here. Besides Matt's vocals, these are obviously the biggest part of the track, and the most important one is the main lead. This one right here, silent main lead. So let's take a listen to that. So pretty simple right there, not a whole lot to it, especially when you hear it by itself, but it's really punchy, and I'm using the 64-bit version of Sylenth. That's the synthesizer here, and if you notice, the first thing I want to draw your attention to is the detune. Now a lot of synths will sound really cool when you crank up the detune because it makes them sound really wide and kind of rich and thicker, so I can show you that here. So let's listen to it. So you can definitely hear a difference there. It starts sounding really ravey and stuff, but in reality what it's starting to do is take away a lot of the punch, especially when it's mixed in with the rest of the track. It just starts to get washed away into the background, starts sounding a lot like noise rather than an actual instrument. So let's take that down a little bit. I can't remember exactly where it was, but that's probably close enough right there. So not really what you want in a main lead when it's getting washed away into the background, So I kept it below halfway there, keeping the original impact of the sound. However, this is kind of what we'll get into next though, but you really want to use other synths besides the main one that are kind of pushed a little bit off to the, or maybe even a lot off to the sides, and create some sort of support layer for the main synth in order to make the overall sound much bigger. So let's take a look at the Spire High now. That's this one right here. So this is Spire. It's a very cool, relatively new synthesizer, but it's very CPU intensive. So you definitely can't have too many of these running because it's going to make your project crash. But if we listen to it on its own, you can hear it's very dry sounding. So just a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, because I don't want a whole lot of coming from that one, because the majority of it is going to be coming from the main synth. So you don't want too much on the side synths, I guess you could say. Otherwise things start to get really messy and it starts sounding like a wall of sound, rather than a sculpted melody. So this is a kind of a MIDI sounding synth right here, and if you'll notice down here I've got the EQ set up with a notch right here. This notch is taking out some really nasty sounding frequencies, and I'll do this a lot actually with some of my synths, where I'll listen to it and so let's listen to it and I'll turn it up here so you can hear what's going on. See, so you can kind of hear that ugly sounding sort of whistle. It's really harsh and hard to listen to. Now imagine hearing that in a club where it's super loud. It'd make people want to cover their ears rather than dance. Not exactly the goal here. So so let's listen to it again. And even with it at 0, you can still kind of hear it a little bit, and it'll just get amplified when it's turned up. So let's get that back down there. So next up, we've got the mid-high Spire layer. That's this one right here. Spire again. So just a slightly different sounding synth than the one we just looked at. Let's listen to it here. So even more in the midsection there than the last one. It's a little bit less detuned, and it's got some character that adds a bit more punch, and you can see the action here happening at around 350 to about 600 hertz, just adding a little more something here, I guess. And then finally we've got the detuned high sides, and it's actually Nexus, and just like the name suggests, it's detuned, it's high, and it's very far off to the sides. So let's listen to that. Now, like I said, I am using Nexus here, but and I know a lot of people don't like Nexus because it's all just presets. But hey, do you want to make sounds or do you want to make songs? So anyways, I usually use Nexus only when I'm done crafting the main sound, and I just want to add a little bit more top end, a little more movement to the sound, or to the the main lead. So if we play the entire lead section with and then without the Nexus, you'll hear just a bit of difference there that I think makes a big impact. So this is with it. And then without. Just adds a little bit of crispiness to it at the top. I think it sounds pretty cool, and I think it really makes a difference. It's subtle, but it adds just that final touch. Okay, and there's one more thing that I wanted to show you guys, and that's my sub bass and how it relates to the other bass parts, namely the kick. So that's this right here. Again, I'm using Silent here, and it's just a few sawtooth waves. You can see right here and here. I've got an EQ on it, and as you can see, I've taken everything but just the lowest frequencies out, and I've even taken a little bit of the way lowest frequencies down here just because it was a little bit too much for me. Just a tiny bit too much, but everything else sounds pretty good, I think. But what I really want to call your attention to is this plugin right here, the M Multi-Analyzer, the one that we just had in the back here. This is probably one of the best plugins I own, and I recommend you get this one right away if you don't already have something else that does what I'm about to show you. So you can have 2 multi-analyzer instances. Well, you can have actually as many as you want, but you want to have at least 2 up so it can do its job, because what it does is basically when you have one instance of the multi-analyzer on one channel and then another instance of it on another channel, they can actually talk to each other and show you where the individual sounds are on the sound spectrum, and you can see if there are any areas where the 2 are clashing. So I have one on my kick, one on my mono mid bass, one on these drop synths, and then one on my bass, and I've actually got one on each of these. So the silent here is the same thing as this bass, it's just rendered down into audio there, so you can see that. So we'll turn that one off. Just leave this here. Just leave this one. So if I play it for you, you can see where everything is now, and you can find ways to EQ things out of each other's ways, so that's really nice. And yeah, so that is the drop right there. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and take a look at the vocal mixing session. Okay, so now we're in the vocal mixing session. I like to complete the instrumental and render it down to an audio file and work with the vocals separately so I can focus solely on them. Because if I have all the other instruments available to me, I know myself, I'm going to start changing things and tweaking things, and sometimes that can lead to making poor decisions to make the instrumental fit the vocal instead of making the vocal fit the instrumental. And that kind of thing can make the instrumental start sounding really weak. Whereas if the vocal is sung well, it can't really ever be made to sound weak unless you do something really drastic, and no one's going to do that. So here we are. Now, there's not a whole lot to tell here just because Matt sent me the vocals already pre-processed pretty damn close to perfectly, so I didn't really have to do too much. But just to go over a few things, I definitely wanted to add a sidechain on him here, especially when the drop kicks in, because I wanted the notes that he holds there to pump in and out in time with the rest of everything that's doing that. I think that's really important, and it adds a lot to the rhythm of the track. So pretty simple there, not a whole lot to it. But if you look, this is the lead vocal, and I've got the sidechain here, and it actually will automate higher when the breaks are here. So there's less of it, and now there's more of it. It drops down the threshold here right when the drop comes in. So pretty simple, but it does add a lot. Oh, and I wanted to point out that even though I had the instrumental rendered out here, you can actually see that I added in a few other things here, just like a noise layer, and what that basically is just quick little stabs of white noise, and that just adds a little bit of attack to the rest of the melody. You'll barely notice it when it's not there, but I think it does add a quite a bit of difference personally. So let's listen to it with and then without. Without it. And here we are with it again. Just a little bit of difference there. And then you can also see I've added in a silent here, just kind of adding in a harmony to it a little bit, so let's listen to that. And it's one of those things where, you might not notice that at the first or even the second time you listen to the track. And, when I was a little kid back in the 80s, I used to listen to music over and over and over again to memorize the lyrics. And in doing that, I'd actually start hearing little bits and pieces of the song that I didn't notice before. Like tiny little things that aren't in the foreground of the track, but without them, it wouldn't be nearly as good, even if you're not fully aware of them being there in the first place, especially if you're just casually listening to the song. And I think this is one of those things for me. It adds a secondary layer that you're not immediately aware of, but I think it's kind of cool. So let's listen to it with and then without. Without it. so on. So not a tremendous difference again, but we're going for subtlety with that one. So yeah, okay, and finally, the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is the track arrangement. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and start the track, and then we'll go through it, and we're going to go ahead and skip through the intro and kind of just start right here where Matt kind of starts coming in. So we're going to listen to the entire track, or at least the majority of it, and I'll go over what I was thinking with each part. Okay, so here it's very serene, it's very chilled out, and we just got Matt singing softly.
Your mind is growing colder at the thought of losing me.
When we get to this part here, we start picking up steam, energy starts coming up, got the clap coming in.
Now you will survive this fire. 'Cause baby, I'm the gasoline.
Now we get to the pre-chorus / build, more energy, the dance floor is kind of starting to groove, and now we're building up to the real build. And so now we're in full build-up mode, and Matt's getting louder and louder. And finally, and so normally in most dance tracks, right here would be the second break, and I've been doing something a little bit different lately with my tracks at this point in the song. If you listen to other tracks right after the drop, it gets kind of quiet again, and that's cool and all at this point, but I want everybody to keep on dancing. And so when I play other tracks in the club, I'll usually get a great response out of the drop, but then it seems like everyone's just kind of sitting there again, waiting for the drop to happen one more time. So by keeping the kick going, people may not be actually going nuts on the dance floor, but they're going to be grooving, they're going to be singing along, or if they're really into it, maybe they are going to be going nuts. Any of those responses is cool. I just don't want them leaving the dance floor to get drinks, especially during one of my tracks. So as you can see, after the first break, there's not really another true break where there isn't some sort of low-end drum keeping the rhythm for the remainder of the track. And even this part right here, which is probably the most chill part of the song, there's still a halftime kick going on, which kind of gives people a break from dancing for a second, but then we're going to get right back into it right here with this big room kick. And that helps kind of drop the song back into high gear, and we've got Matt kind of building up the energy again, and that's pretty much it, guys and gals. That's Gasoline. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I wasn't too overly technical. I know a lot of this stuff isn't for everyone, but at least it'll give you some insight into how the track was written. So Gasoline is out right now on Beatport. If you like the track, please show your support by picking up a copy. It really does help artists like me out, as your purchase goes to helping me climb the charts. Okay, well that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys have a pleasant day, and I'll see you when I see you.